went to Las Vegas with my girls and woke up in a guy's bed. The aftermath would ruin my life. A harmless girls' trip is going to change everything for me. I went to Las Vegas with my friends, and I didn't know how I ended up in a guy's bed. It still feels like a dream to me. I can't imagine that I cheated on my husband with a random guy I didn't know from anywhere. If I had known, maybe I wouldn't have gone on this trip in the first place. Hi, Reddit. My name is Charlotte. Not a real name, though. I am 28 years old and a full-time housewife. My husband's name is Joe. Also not a real name, guys. I want to go anonymous because I don't want to get things complicated. My husband still doesn't know about my infidelity. That's why I came here for you guys to advise me on what to do, either to open up to him about it or just let it be. Actually, my friends had considered opening up to him, but I couldn't do it. It's been weeks since we got back from the trip, and I have been living in fear and disappointment ever since then. I'm not sure how to go about it. I honestly do not know what to tell him. Let's assume I do. Would I be able to take the heat as a result of Joe's reaction? Guys, I don't think I would. I'm just so scared and anxious. Let's forget, my husband is a 30-year-old entrepreneur and business manager. My husband and I had been together for 5 years. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a full-time housewife. I have no job of my own or working for anyone. When Joe and I both got married, we had a mutual agreement about me not working. Apparently, it was my suggestion to stop working. At that time, I wanted to focus on my marriage and taking care of my family. I know it may sound ridiculous to you guys, but at that time, that was the only thing that was on my mind to do. Joe wasn't initially in full support of it, but he agreed to it anyway. After all, he couldn't force me to do what I don't want to do. But guys, I have been regretting that decision I made 5 years ago. Don't get me wrong. Taking care of your home and husband isn't a bad idea, but it wasn't as I thought it would be. I lived comfortably, there's no doubt about that. My husband provided everything that I needed and always gave me money to restock the house and also get whatever thing I needed. It was so much fun for me, and I enjoyed every bit of it. My main reason for regretting such decisions is that I don't have any career to fall back to if things turn south tomorrow. I don't know how Joe would react if he learns that I cheated on him with a random guy on a trip he sponsored for my friends and I. I'm really scared and anxious at the moment. The only people that know about this are my friends that we went on this trip with. Like I said earlier, they have advised me to open up to Joe. I have been finding it so hard to tell him. The kind of friends I have wouldn't go behind my back to tell Joe about it. I am very sure of that. I have known them since childhood, and I know what each of them could do. Even though they aren't happy about what happened at Las Vegas, they still advised me to open up to Joe so I could move past that incident. It's been draining for me since that day I learned about what happened at the hotel room in Vegas. I still can't even wrap my head around everything. I never had the intention to cheat on my husband. Joe had been nothing but a nice, caring husband. Not just that, he has also been faithful to me and never defaulted on any of the promises we made to each other at the altar. The least I could do was to stay faithful to him. My life would take a new turn when the secret is revealed. This past few weeks has to be the most challenging time of my life. I can't live like the way I used to after that trip. Anytime I'm with Joe, the guilt hits differently, in a very hard way, so to say. I wish I could erase that memory from my head and pretend like nothing ever happened. I have tried everything to forget about it. In fact, I'm still trying, but nothing is working at the moment. I tried distracting myself by going to clubs and doing my most favorite things with my friends, but it isn't helping at all. Each passing day, I feel worse, as if I had committed a huge crime that can't be forgiven. With the way Joe and I are so much closed with each other, I don't think I would be able to stand his reaction. I know it would break him into pieces when the truth comes out. Guys, I want you all to advise me on what to do. This is my only option. I honestly don't have anywhere to go. I thought of coming here to vent so you all can proffer solutions for me. I would appreciate it if you all would not judge me after everything. Yes, I made a mistake. But then again, no one is above making mistakes. The difference about mine is that it wasn't intentional. I didn't plan it out. Joe never did anything to upset me that would warrant that. All he ever did was to love me and take care of me like a husband would do. My relationship with Joe was unique. We loved each other so much to the extent that we created a safe space where we could be free to share anything that could be a burden to us with each other. Joe trusted me to the extent that he tells me things he finds hard to share with someone else. He never does anything unless he seeks my opinion. Most of his colleagues would tease him because of that, but Joe never cared because he loved me so much. I have never seen such a supportive husband like Joe. Few months after I stopped working, I got bored and nothing really interested me. My husband suggested I start working not for the money, because he was capable of taking care of the household bills and mine, but just to keep myself busy. Most of the time, he always tried to get home early to spend time with me. We spent our weekends cooking and cleaning. Most of the time, we would go on dates. Our relationship was great, and I couldn't wish to have married anyone else. This went on for 3 years, and I really enjoyed it. The last 2 years of our marriage have also been great too. My husband's job took most of his time and was hardly at home. In order to not make me bored, he suggested I go on mini vacations with my friends and promised to sponsor it for us. All that was expected of us was to name any place we wanted to go, and Joe would sort it out for us. Guys, who wouldn't love to be with such a man that spends on you without complaining? Guys, my marriage with Joe was peaceful and drama-free. We got to a point where we don't argue over little things. We managed to settle any misunderstandings without any drama. I won't lie, guys. I can't really remember when Joe and I last fought. We literally did not have the time for that, because my husband was hardly at home for us to get on each other's nerves. The few times he was around, we made good use of it by spending time with him. I trusted Joe with everything in me and knew that he wouldn't cheat on me. Yes, sometimes I got insecure and checked his phone a few times, but didn't find anything. Rather, he kept ignoring messages he got from ladies that wanted to have something with him. One thing I admired the most was how my husband would tell them he was married and wasn't interested. Such a man is rare and should be tightly kept if found. Within the last 2 years, my friends and I have lost count on the number of cities we have been to for both mini and long vacations. In a year, we could go 3 times. Sometimes Joe joined us when he was less busy, and it was more fun and exciting. So guys, our trip to Las Vegas was something we had been planning for a few months now. It was one of the most important places we wanted to go on our bucket list. Somehow, we had issues in getting a flight ticket there for some reason, which I wouldn't be sharing based on personal reasons. When that was happening at that time, we lost all hopes of ever going to Las Vegas for our vacation. It was really frustrating and at the same time annoying. When Las Vegas wasn't forthcoming, we skipped to other ones that were available. It was great, but it wasn't as we had planned it to be. In fact, I wanted to go on that trip with not just my friends alone, but also with my husband. We wanted to explore the place together, take pictures, and make unforgettable memories, but that didn't happen when we had the plans. As at the time our tickets got approved, my husband was to go on an important business trip. He had been waiting for it for so long, and we didn't want to miss it for anything. Even though my husband considered canceling because of me, I persuaded him to go because I didn't want to be selfish. Yes, I got a bit disappointed that it clashed with our Las Vegas vacation, but I didn't want to stop him. That wouldn't have made any sense. After all, he was working so he could take care of the both of us. So guys, my friends and I were happy when the tickets got approved. We made a lot of preparations for the vacation. Las Vegas vacation was the most exciting trip my friends and I anticipated. Even though we had gone on different trips, Vegas was the most exciting one for us. A few days after we were to go on the trip, Joe left the town for the business meeting. When he left, my friends came over just to keep me company until the day we were to leave. I love having my friends around anytime Joe isn't in town. I don't know what I would have become without them. Anyways, guys, on the day of the trip, my friends and I went to the airport 4 hours to the takeoff time. We did that because we wanted to make sure nothing would stop us from going. I don't know why, but we wanted to go to Las Vegas so badly then. Guys, if I had known that the trip would be my greatest nightmare, I wouldn't have thought about it or made any plans to go in the first place. The most anticipated trip for me has turned into a nightmare. I really wish this is a dream right now. If it was, then I would like to be woken up from it. You all wouldn't understand how I feel about everything that happened in Las Vegas. The most annoying part of it was that I had no intention of meeting with any guy or making out with any. I went there to explore the place with my friends and create memories with them. How would I be able to explain this to Joe that what happened was a mistake without him thinking that I planned it out, considering how excited I was to go on the trip? It would be so hard to convince him. I don't even know how he's going to react to this unfortunate incident. How I wish I could find something reasonable to say to him, something believable that it wouldn't sound like it was a made-up story. Guys, this is where I would need your help. Is it possible for you all to make it come true for me? I really love my husband and wouldn't want to hurt him in any way. I don't want to ruin the beautiful relationship my husband and I have. It's so beautiful to ruin it, guys. Ever since the last trip, I lost interest in going on any other trip. My friends and I had plans to go on a vacation after Las Vegas, but after what happened, I can't see myself going on anymore. It's been weeks since I last saw them. We only communicate through video chats. My husband has been noticing my withdrawal from social activities, and it has been a thing of concern to him. If not until I sort this out of my way and be sure that my husband has fully forgiven me, I would put a stop to any vacation for now. I know you all would want to know what really happened that has made me so restless, right? Well, I will tell you guys. After all, that's what I came here to do. So guys, the trip to Las Vegas was a long flight from the city we live in. The journey was stressful, but worth it. One thing I loved most about the place was the amazing places the city had. My friends and I went sightseeing and shopping. Another thing we did was try lots of varieties of cuisines. We loved the food so much I won't lie about that. It was a 3-week trip, and we made the best out of it. We also went to clubs and a lot of exciting places at night. That was what we wanted in the first place. The trip was going so well and smoothly not until one fateful night. At that time, we had just 2 days to spend before we went back home. My friends and I made plans to make it worth it since we wouldn't be going out the night before our flight because we would be busy packing our stuff. That night, I felt reluctant to go because I was a bit tired from the skydiving we did earlier that day. But my friends managed to convince me to go, promising that it would be fun. Well, I agreed and we left. That night, we went to one of the biggest casinos in Las Vegas, which I won't be mentioning. Initially, it was one of the things we came to see in Vegas, just that I was a bit tired to go. But I went at last, though. The place was huge and beautiful. We also tried their most tasty cocktails. It was very tasty. After that, one of my friends, Gina, said she was interested in playing some games. She was very good at it, so the rest of us didn't try to stop her. Instead, we followed her to the spot to give her our support. When we got there, we met other players on the table. When the game started, I noticed one of the players, who was a guy, couldn't stop staring at me. Honestly, the guy was handsome, there's no doubt about that. But I wasn't interested because I wasn't single at that moment. The game went fine, and my Gina won. Yes, guys, she was that good at the game. After the game, we all went to celebrate Gina's win with some bottles of wine. While we were at it, the guy that kept staring at me during the game walked up to us to have a conversation. At that point, I didn't know why, but I got anxious. The guy introduced himself as Derek and offered to pay for our bills. Of course, we declined and told him we weren't interested. After much thought, we agreed, and that gave him the opportunity to sit down with us. After Derek came, 3 other guys came to join us, and my friends picked interest in them and left. I was left with Derek on the table. He was nice and friendly, though. Our conversation was mainly about how well Gina played the game. From there, we talked a bit about how my friends and I were on a vacation. I also didn't forget to mention to Derek that I was married and warned him to not get too attached. But Derek told me he just wanted to be friends, and maybe more than friends someday, because he really liked me. I didn't give in to any of his advances and focused on my drink. The night got pretty heated, and before I knew it, I got drunk. It was at that time I knew that Derek and I had taken lots of shots. It was fun, guys. When it was getting late, I told Derek that I would be going back to my hotel since my friends had gone with their dates. Derek agreed and asked to have my contact so we could get in touch. I declined immediately, but he insisted and said he meant no harm. We exchanged contacts and stood up to leave. Guys, I couldn't even stand up properly. Derek tried to help me out in getting back to my hotel. The casino was really far from my hotel, but Derek was ready to help. In the process of helping me to his car, Derek and I got really close with each other and didn't know what was happening. Our hearts were pounding so fast at the same time. Guys, I haven't felt like that in such a long time then. It's crazy how Derek and I connected with each other that way. Before I knew what was happening, Derek and I were kissing each other. I tried pulling once out, but Derek wouldn't let me. Honestly, for some reason, I didn't want it to end at that moment. Anyways, That was the last thing I could remember that night. The next morning, I felt lightheaded, and I knew it was the result of the alcohol I had the previous night. At first, when I woke up, I didn't realize quickly that I was in a different room or even notice that someone was on the bed with me. It was when I was about getting up from the bed, I realized that I was not just in my room, but was unclad, wrapped up with a duvet. Immediately, I stood up with the duvet. It was then I saw Derek soundly asleep on the bed. I wasted no time in waking him up to demand an explanation of what had happened between us. Derek was surprised to see me reacting that way and asked what the issue was. I asked him to tell me what exactly I was doing on his bed and not mine. Derek looked confused and asked me if I was still tipsy because I was acting funny. At that point, I was already impatient with him. All I wanted was to know how I ended up on his bed. He wasn't giving me a reasonable answer. It got to a point that I threatened to call the cops on him if he wouldn't answer me. Derek looked at me and burst into laughter. He told me that there was no need involving the cops because I agreed to spend the night with him. It was then he told me that while we were kissing, I asked him to find somewhere that we could go. Guys, that was how we ended up spending the night together in his room. At that moment, I didn't even know what to say or how to react to what he told me. I didn't know if I should blame Derek or blame the alcohol. The fact that I got lost and drank so much to the extent I got drunk was irresponsible of me. I was bad at handling my liquor, but still went ahead to drink with a total stranger, and even ended up on his bed. I got angry that morning and picked up my clothes that were on the floor and got dressed. After I was done, I got out of the room without saying a word to Derek. I was very disappointed in myself that I couldn't say anything. I got to the hotel room and found my friends waiting for me. They kept calling my line, but I didn't pick up. It was at that moment I remembered to check my phone and saw that I had missed a few calls from them. They kept talking for some few minutes before they noticed that I wasn't paying attention to any of what they were saying. I was still trying to wrap my head around what happened between Derek and I. I broke down in tears and told my friends what had happened. They were all shocked to hear that from me. They thought I came back to the hotel since I told them that I would find my way back. I couldn't even answer any of their questions because I was too heartbroken. We all sat on the bed thinking of how to fix what had happened and how to tell my husband. After much thought, I told them that I wouldn't tell Joe about it immediately because I wanted to sort things out myself. They promised to keep it within ourselves until when I'm ready. The next day, we flew back home. Our 3 weeks vacation ended that day. Coming back home after the incident was a huge burden to me. I got so scared and restless. Joe, on the other hand, was happy to see me. He told me how he had missed me. I couldn't even look my husband in the face twice because I was so ashamed of myself. Joe noticed my mood and asked what was the issue. I gave the excuse that I was stressed out because of the trip. I didn't know of any reasonable excuse to give. I tried not to make my guilt look too obvious. I managed to get away with it till now. I haven't been myself, guys, and it's not funny at this point. A few days after we got back, I got a message from a strange number. The number wasn't saved on my phone, and so I didn't know who it was. I opened the message and discovered it was Derek. He texted to know how I was doing and asked why I left the hotel without saying a word to him. I stared at the message for a few seconds before deciding what to do. Without thinking twice, I ignored the message and continued with what I was doing at that moment. I thought ignoring his message would make him stop, but it didn't. I have been receiving lots of messages from Derek, but I have been ignoring all of them. I have also not been picking his calls too. At this point, I really don't know what to do. Derek is just complicating the whole thing for me. Update. Hey Redditors, it's been 3 weeks since I last updated you all about my last post. My heart is heavy at the moment. The advice you all gave couldn't help out, not even a single one of them. Was that even an advice to begin with? Because most of the comments here were mockery. I really don't know whether to be disappointed or angry at myself for coming here. Anyways, things got really complicated a week after I made my last post. A lot of you here would be happy to hear that, but it's fine anyway. So guys, my husband somehow found out the truth and his reaction wasn't funny at all. As I expected, Joe was really angry and disappointed in me for getting so close to the point of getting intimate with another guy. Did he give me a chance to explain myself? Yes, but after everything he told me, he couldn't see himself being with a cheater. What even made the whole thing even more complicated, according to Joe, was the fact that I had the audacity to come back home and live like nothing even happened. It wasn't like I didn't want to tell him. I was just too scared. You all might be wondering how he got to know, right? So my husband noticed how uneasy and restless I was feeling after the trip to Las Vegas. He even noticed that I didn't go out with my friends like I usually would do, or even go on the next trip. Actually, he tried talking to me about it, but I kept telling him that I just wanted to stop traveling for some time and focus on spending time with him. My husband didn't believe me because he was hardly at home. I thought that would help, but it didn't. My husband had to take things up by checking through my phone. Joe noticed I acted funny with my phone and wasn't accessible like it used to. I was very proactive with my phone at that time. When he got the opportunity, he took it and went through my phone. That day, Joe and I had stepped out to get ice cream from a mall. When we got there, Joe proposed I go in to get the ice cream while he waits in the car. Guys, that was how I left my phone in the car with him. At that time, it didn't cross my mind to take it with me. According to Joe, after I had stepped out of the car, a message popped up on the screen. He ignored the first message and thought it wasn't that serious. But a few seconds later, another message popped up, and he was curious to know who would have sent such messages to me, because it was kind of a naughty message. Apparently, Derek kept asking me to come over to Las Vegas for the second time so we could continue from where we had stopped. Even after I told him everything that happened was a mistake and warned him not to message me again, Derek didn't stop. My husband read all the chats and went through my call logs before I came back to the car. Immediately I stepped in. Joe wasted no time to ask who Derek was to me. I pretended like I didn't know anyone like that and tried to change the topic. My husband then brought out my phone and showed me my chats with Derek. It was at that moment I knew that I had already been caught and I didn't even know how to defend myself. I stuttered finding words to put together. I explained everything that happened that night and blamed it all on alcohol. My husband didn't believe anything that I said to him that day. Joe was really mad at me. What event angered him the most was the fact that I was trying to blame it on alcohol, when I should have been more careful if I knew I couldn't control my liquor. Joe yelled at me and I scolded me like a 12-year-old. I got really scared. Guys, I almost peed on myself. My whole body was shaking because I was scared when I saw Joe behave like that to me. Joe asked me to get out of the car and warned me not to come any close to him. At first I thought he was joking because I knew that Joe would never say such a thing to me. But that day, he meant business. He told me to either get out of the car quietly or he would do it himself, which I wouldn't like. Guys, I had no option than to step down. My husband didn't listen to anything that I was saying. I pleaded with him to not send me out, but he refused. The weather was very hot that day and I couldn't get a cab because Joe didn't give me back my phone. The distance was far and I trekked it. I didn't have any other means to get back to the house. When I finally got home after some time, I saw my things littered outside of the house. I was angry to see my things that way. I packed them up so I could get them back inside, but the door was locked. I tried pleading with Joe to open the door for me and also to forgive me, but he didn't make any move to come out. I tried entering through the back door, but it was locked also. That day I ended up spending the night outside. I couldn't even make any phone calls because Joe was with my phone. I had friends to go to, but I couldn't because I was very exhausted after the long walk from the mall to the house. The distance was very far, and I didn't have the strength to walk. I spent the night outside, but I couldn't sleep. I cried all through the night. The next morning, Joe finally came out of the house. I was happy and thought maybe he had changed his mind about what happened, but I was heartbroken after hearing what he said to me. Joe told me that the marriage was over and would not like to have anything to do with me any longer. He asked me to pack my bags and leave the premises and gave me 24 hours to do something, otherwise he would call the cops on me. Not only that, Joe told me that he had called his lawyer to work out the divorce papers and he would have them signed and sent to me. Joe told me not to even think of taking the case to court when I get the divorce papers because it would be a waste of time and resources and said if I even had any. That word really struck me hard. He was right. After all, I had no source of income. I was dependent on myself. At that moment, I was trying to process everything that Joe was saying to me. Nothing made any sense to me. I couldn't imagine that my husband would turn a cold shoulder to me because of a mistake that wasn't intentional. I don't know whether to blame it all on alcohol or not. That day, I felt so stupid. My marriage was coming to an end because of my irresponsibility. My husband, on the other hand, wasn't even ready to let things slide. I kept asking myself if he ever loved me like he claimed, because if he had, he wouldn't have let me spend the night outside the house. What kind of a husband would do that to his wife he claimed to love? Does that mean that everything Joe and I shared meant nothing to him, that he couldn't forgive me because of a mistake? To say that I'm very disappointed is an understatement. It wasn't even like I was having an affair with someone else that he caught me. From the chats, he could see that I wasn't even happy with the whole thing that happened, but Joe chose to end things with me. I don't even know how to feel anymore. What I have been scared of has finally come out. My life hasn't been the same ever since then. I just can't believe that my marriage of 5 years is coming to an end. It's funny how things switch within a second without warning. I was living the life every married woman would dream of. Who wouldn't love to be pampered the way Joe pampered me? The lifestyle I lived in his house was amazing. I didn't have anything to worry about materially or financially. Everything was settled by Joe. Now, I don't have anybody that would give me that. Right now, as I'm writing this, the divorce papers are right here with me. It's been 2 weeks since I got them, and I have not been able to sign them. The truth is, I still love my husband and would want a second chance. The terms on the divorce papers aren't favorable to me at all. I would be in big trouble if I signed them. That is, I would not have any tangible thing from the divorce. Is this really a prank or something? I don't even know whether to sign it or not. Update. Redditors, it's been a ride so far. Here's the final update to my last post. I ended up signing the divorce papers. There was no point delaying the process. Either I signed it or not, Joe wouldn't have taken me back. My husband made it clear that he didn't want to have anything to do with me. For the divorce, I couldn't take it to court. Not only did I not have the financial capability to find it, I didn't have the emotional strength to go through all of that. At that time, I was losing my mind, and going to court would worsen the whole situation. I never planned to divorce my husband. We promised to be there with each other until the wheels fell off. I guess that's not ever going to happen. I thought my trip to Las Vegas was going to cost me my marriage and ruin my life forever. It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. I have gone on a lot of trips with my friends, and it all ended well. I didn't know why this was different from them all. Even though the trip cost me my marriage, it was the best experience ever. I have never had fun like I did at Vegas, but I guess this is where it ends for me. I hope I will be able to outlive this memory and live like this never happened in the first place. I'm slowly closing this horrible chapter of my life. Starting all over again isn't a good thing, most especially when you are used to being taken care of by your partner. I can no longer do the things I used to do anymore because I have lost the one person that made it easier for me. To make things clear, guys, I have no business with Derek. I blocked him a long time ago. I should have done that a long time. Maybe my husband would never have found out, and I would have lived like nothing like that ever happened. But like the saying goes, the truth will eventually come to light no matter how one tries to cover it. Well, I guess I will have to suffer the consequences of my stupid mistake now. It's been changeling for me, and I have no choice but to face it all alone. Till tomorrow, Joe will always be in my heart. Moving on from Joe isn't so easy. Yes, I guess I still have feelings for me. After all, we have been together for 5 years. So guys, you all can see that it's not that easy for me to quickly move on or forget about my husband that quickly.